All right. Hey, I'm super excited to kick off our second episode of Health Simplified with a good friend of mine, William. We met in Chino Hills, and I was super pumped to have him come on and kind of chat about a couple things because he has a lot of value. So if you would kind of want to kick us off, just kind of tell us your story and why are you doing what you're doing?
So my name is William Branum. We met in at an event in Chino Hills, California. I currently live in Hawaii right now, so I get around. I spent 26 years in the SEAL teams, and when I retired from the SEAL teams, I felt like I was lost. Had no mission, no purpose, no team. I felt like if you've ever seen that Avengers movie where Thanos snaps his fingers and half the world's population vanishes, the day I retired from the SEAL teams that's kind of what I felt like. I lost my purpose, my mission, and my team, and I went into like a state of pretty deep depression. And people are like, "Oh, you're a Navy SEAL. You don't nothing bothers you." Well, lots of stuff bothers us. And so I found this molecule called CBD, and it's everywhere now, but back then it wasn't very prevalent. And I tried it. It seemed to help turn down the noise in my head so I could have more positive self-talk. And then as I figured my stuff out to kind of get back on where I needed to go, I looked back at my time in the SEAL teams in my 26 years of service, and I looked to figure out like what are the things that made me successful in the SEAL teams. What are the things that made everyone successful in the SEAL teams? And what I came out with was this sort of get naked mindset. Part of it was taking the ego off. First, I had to strip the ego off, kind of like they strip your ego off when you join the military and you go to SEAL training or whatever it is that you do. They strip all of that away. They break you down, to brass tacks, and then they start building you back up. And so I realized that I needed to take on this new phase of life. I had to take that ego off that I was carrying around. Like I did, some great stuff once upon a time. I did some terrible stuff once upon a time, and this is a whole new life. So take that ego off, stop hiding behind whatever it is that you think you used to do or what you think you may be entitled to. Entitlement sucks. Entitlement is stupid. And so I came up with the Get Naked mindset, and Get Naked it's all about the N. It's an acronym, and it's something I give from stage quite a lot. And so the N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is to kill mediocrity. The E is expose your fears, and D is do the work. And when I came up with that, it was first of all I started a CBD company, and no one. And what I realized very quickly is that I couldn't market CBD. Like marketing CBD was almost impossible. I didn't have a Facebook or an Instagram account before I started my CBD company. And what I quickly learned is that I would try to run ads on social media, and they would delete my account pretty much right away, but still take my money. Don't worry, we're going to take your money even though your account doesn't exist anymore. And so I finally figured out that I can't market CBD traditionally the way that companies promote their product. So I had to find out new ways to market my product. So I hired a business coach, and then another business coach. And my coaches are like, "Why aren't you doing coaching? In addition to selling CBD, why aren't you doing coaching? Why aren't you building a personal brand? Why aren't you doing things that you used to do, and like take those lessons that you learned once upon a time and apply those to the world, what people need right now?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have a message. I don't have anything to share. I don't need to stand on stage. I don't want to stand on stage." So somehow throughout my process of healing and trying to figure out who the hell I am now in this civilian world, I started doing the three things that I swore I would never do. Number one, sell a product. I always thought sales were like, I'm not a salesperson, but I sell a product in CBD and coaching and speaking. Then I started coaching people on mindset and leadership and things like that, and then I started speaking from stage. So somehow I went from the sort of depressed guy that was a has-been, who did some cool stuff once upon a time, to he has no mission or purpose, to doing the three things he swore he would never do, which is selling a product, coaching people on getting better, and then speaking from stage. I still say when I stand on stage, that I'm more comfortable in a gunfight than I am speaking in front of a bunch of people because I was trained on how to be in a gunfight, and I'm pretty good at that. But speaking from stage, I'm still like, oh, this is scary. What could like bad things could happen to me up here? So I don't even know what your question was. I just started rambling until I got some words out of my mouth.
Hey, no, I know, I love that. I think that's really, really, really cool. It's really interesting that kind of listening to you. I think your story is so powerful. But like, kind of, you're in the Navy SEALs, you left, and then you kind of had this like, I don't know what to do in life. I didn't have this purpose. And then you said you hired a couple business coaches and you did the couple things you said you wouldn't do. What kind of had to go? What was that internal work you had to do overcome that? Because you probably, as coaching people just like myself, people like, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to count macros. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to do this. But what was that internal deep work that you had to do to convince yourself? Because really, at the end of the day, it's just the limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves of, why we don't want to do those. How did you overcome that?
I talked about it, losing my team when I retired from the SEAL teams. And what I had to do is, and I'm still working on it today, and I'm still doing that deep work. Number one, I had to find who I wanted my new team to be. Jim Rohn talks about you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, or that you're the closest with. And that's absolutely true. It was true in the SEAL teams. In the SEAL teams, no one cares about they care about your rank a little bit or your position, but what they really care about is what you're doing today. And so I could be in charge of a bunch of guys and be leading them, but if I didn't show up and be my absolute best self every single day, the most newest guy on the team is going to call me out, and he's going to say, "Hey, why don't you pull your head out of your ass? Let's get your shit together." And I can take offense to it, or I can actually get my shit together. And so what I ended up doing is taking that same process and applying that to my personal life. Like I said, I hired some different coaches, and then I started, and they became part of my inner circle. And I started reaching out to other guys that used to be in the SEAL teams that I've worked with. They became, again, my inner circle. And so part of the thing that I wanted to do for myself, to do that deep work, was surround myself by people who are going to hold me accountable, who aren't going to just like say, oh, it's going to be all right, it's whatever. And that's fine to have that sometimes, but knowing the difference between feeling sorry for yourself and actually needing support, sometimes that support that you need is this kind of the school of hard knocks, where they're like, hey, you're being a baby right now, man up and grow up and get it done. And then other times, if I'm actually really struggling, be brave enough to ask for help. Sometimes being brave enough to ask for help is like one of the hardest things to do. And when I learned to be like how to be brave enough to ask for help, that was a game changer in my life. And that also allowed me to like let my inner circle know if I was kind of feeling sorry for myself or if I actually needed help.
I love that. And I think it's like so powerful, having that inner circle. I couldn't agree more with you. Yeah, you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with. But one of the biggest things I think is really interesting too is that I still think in society today, regardless if it's male or female, we have this like limiting belief that asking for help is a weakness, right? And what did you have to do? It's kind of like what I stress with my coaching clients that I work with, like, hey, like, let's celebrate the fact that you were willing to ask for help and invest in your health, because not many people are willing to do that. So what mindset did you have to put yourself in? Was it just simply hanging out with some people that weren't afraid, to ask for help? Like, what did you have to do to finally be okay with raising your hand, saying, you know what, I don't know what I don't know. And if I want to get to where I want to go, I need to ask for help.
So two significant things happened in my life. One is there was a senior leader in the SEAL team, someone who I looked up highly to, who came out one day and said, hey, just so you guys know, I'm going to go get some help. I'm struggling with some stuff over here. I've got some issues and I need some help. So I'm going to go get some help. And my initial thought was like, holy crap, he's going to be eaten alive. Like the command is going to destroy him. He's never going to be able to operate again. Like all these terrible things are going to happen. And it couldn't be further from the truth that, what actually happened is people started looking up to him with more respect than before. And he was very highly respected in the SEAL teams. And so I took that on because I never wanted to show weakness ever from my life, not even in the SEAL teams, like even as a child, never wanting to show weakness. Which, compounded when you're surrounded by a bunch of alpha dudes that don't if they smell weakness, they're going to eat you alive. And what I realized over time is that, even though we're a bunch of alpha dudes that will go out and do some hard things, and we may have some people who are on the verge of a sociopath, in the way that we think, is that we still all have compassion. We still all care about our teammates and really our family. And so we want the best for them. And then the other thing that happened in my life after I retired is I was on a call. I think I was on, what's that, Clubhouse platform. I don't even know what room I was in, but somehow there was a girl in there that was she was a psychologist, I think, or psychiatrist. I don't know the difference between the two. One can give meds, one can't. But anyway, I was talking about, I think, probably imposter syndrome or something along those lines, and then, afraid to ask for help. And then she said to me something like, and this was me trying to become vulnerable, which is not an easy task for me. But she said, well, let me ask you a question. When someone asks you for help, how does that make you feel? I was like, oh, it makes me feel awesome, like wanted, needed. I feel helpful. I bring value to someone's life. And then she said, right. So why are you robbing someone the opportunity to do that for you? And I was like, I don't want to be on this conversation anymore. I don't like the fact that you called me out the way that you just called me out, but I was grateful that she did. And so, but I find that it takes a tremendous amount of courage. I think, especially for men. I think women have they're just wired differently. So they have their group of girls and women friends that they confide into. And men, we don't have a lot of that. And so it just becomes harder for us to ask for help. But it's like working out. The more that you do it, the easier it will become. Lifting a certain amount of weight, you might start off and that might be your 1 rep max. And then, you keep working at that. And pretty soon you're doing, 5 sets of 10 with the same weight that used to be your 1 rep max. The same thing for asking for help. Like, know when you actually need to ask for help, and then go ask for help from the people that you trust, that can give you the help that you need. Even if you have to pay for the help, it's totally fine.
I love that. Yeah. So that's really interesting that you say that, because I think for a lot of people, I still think there's this stigma of paying to ask for help. Did you have to kind of overcome that, or was it just that question in Clubhouse? Which I think that's a social media platform. I actually don't know. So there you go. But like, was there anything that you had to do to get over the fact, like, hey, I'm gonna go pay for someone to help me, or was it just the same thing you just did? Like, I don't want to rob someone the ability to help me and have them feel good about helping you.
Well, I think I just had to figure out that I just had to realize that I can't figure it all out myself. And once I did, it was a lot easier. And I found people that I knew could help me. And I also, and I listened to a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of coaches, and a lot of times, there's this saying out there that when you pay attention. And I'm like, I'm paying attention right now. Like, I don't have any money. And I went from, having the other thing that I kind of I struggled significantly with is, being in the military for 26 years, my entire adult life, I had a paycheck coming in. And then again, overnight, I had no paycheck. I went from like having, middle class income to having no income. And then my bills also went up because, I had health insurance and all this other stuff. And now all of a sudden I had to pay for things. And so paying for someone to help me figure stuff out was a big reach. And, but again, I was like, I was going through this process of figuring me out and trusting the process. There's a process for everything out there. And, oftentimes you need help to get to that next step, or at least help find someone to help collapse time for you to get to that next step. And really at the end of the day, it was just me putting my ego aside, pulling out my credit card, like this is going to hurt, but I know it's the right thing to do. I made the purchase and I got the help that I needed, which helped me move even further forward and really accelerated my process and my growth.
I love that. And, and I think I like what you said there too, is about like, yeah, it definitely, you when you pay attention, but like when you pulled that credit card, and I'm assuming the first time you did that, because I'm assuming probably like me, when I started my business, I had no money. I was just betting that like, I'm going to bet on myself. And I'm like, I'm going to hope that this X dollar purchase that I purchase is going to take me to the promised land that I need to, that I need to get to. But was there fear? Was there uncertainty? Because I don't know about you, but when I made that first big purchase in hiring a coach and getting into mentorship, I about shit myself, because I was like, if I don't figure out how to pay this back, like I got to go to my entire circle and I have to tell them that like this didn't work. Did you have that same thought process when you
I have so many business things going on out there right now. I still have it today. But I also, I did some cool stuff in the military. One of those was jumping out of airplanes. I have had to cut away my parachute in the past, and I did not want to do it. And, and so we were doing high altitude, high opening training. So we're jumping at super high altitudes, but the idea is you jump out at like, 20,000 feet, and then you navigate in, from way above, radar, and you jump in and you fly your parachutes following the low guy. He's navigating into a drop zone that's maybe 20, 30 miles away from where you got out. And you're in the sky for a long time. You've got, full body armor, weapon, rucksack full of stuff, and you're going into, and then go for a long hike afterwards. So we're doing a bunch of jumps with a bunch of evolutions, and we're jumping in the daytime and then later on at night with night vision goggles. And I remember going out, pulling my parachute, counting to 4, pulling my parachute, and my risers were crossed behind my neck, and I couldn't steer my parachute, because everything was backwards. My parachute was pointing the right way, but it was not good. And so because I couldn't drive my parachute, I had to cut it away. And there's this blind faith, and I've heard all kinds of stories about, the guy who packs your reserve parachute. I packed my own parachute, and that was the reason that it didn't open correctly. And there's a whole nother story behind that. But, I've heard all these stories about, maybe the guys that are designated to pack your reserve parachute, maybe they were disgruntled, maybe they left, clips in there that prevent it from actually opening properly. All sorts of like really terrible stories. And every one of those stories went through my head when I realized I have to cut my parachute away. And I was like, this is the worst decision I've ever had to make in my life. I'm still at like probably 8,000 feet above the ground, wearing about 200 pounds worth of equipment plus my own body weight. And I have to cut this thing away. And I'm like, this is, I don't want to do this, but I had to do it. Blind faith. Just go ahead and put the credit card out, pull the ripcord, and see what happens. And so I cut my parachute away, and I just heard like you have 3-ring assembly, ching, 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 and it was completely quiet all of a sudden. And, you're supposed to arch and like get ready for that parachute to open again. And then boom, it opened. And I was like, okay, all good. Get to the landing zone or to the drop zone. And, but that was, it's kind of like that. When you're in a hard spot and you need help and you need to like pull your reserve parachute, is like laying that credit card down. Like, I don't have any income yet. Like, I'm putting faith into someone else to help me get where I need to go. Now, just because you pay someone to do something doesn't mean that your problems are solved. It means you still have to do the work, but they give you the template. They give you like the format. They give you the map to get there. And sometimes they're only going to give you like one step at a time, because too much information, paralysis analysis, depending on the quality of of coaching or whatever it is that you're paying for, working out is one day at a time. And so fitness is one day at a time, one meal at a time, one workout at a time, one night of sleep at a time. And so whatever the thing that you're doing, you got to take that blind faith, and then you have to actually do the work. So I wasn't going to land on the drop zone if I didn't actually drive my parachute to get there. I wasn't going to land on the drop zone if I didn't pull my reserve, cut away my main parachute either. So there was, a lot of stuff has to happen. And, it's not only blind faith, but there's a certain amount of work that you have to do to achieve the success or the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that analogy too, because yeah, you're right. It's a lot of blind faith, but at the end of the day, it comes down to just because you pay somebody doesn't mean that it's going to work, because it only works if you work it. I know that one of my mentors said, like, hey, I can give you the step-by-step process, but if you don't go and do it, like, it doesn't matter. No one can save you unless you're willing to do the work. And I guess my question for you is how can you, because I know you also work with people as well in coaching through, I think, Health and Fitness, if I'm remembering correctly. How do you take that analogy and how do you instill that into your clients to show them, like, hey, I'm going to give you the step-by-step process, but at the end of the day, you got to be the one willing to do the work?
I pretty much just tell them that specifically. Like, we can talk as much as you want, but if you're not going to get in there and lift the weights or count your calories. So I do a lot of business and leadership coaching, which is primarily what I do, but somehow by default, I guess because of my background, a lot of people ask me for fitness advice, or, they want to coach me on fitness, or, what's the other word that they use? Accountability. They want me to be their accountability coach. I'm like, okay. So when I'm talking to an entrepreneur, a business professional, and we're working on, counting what you put in your face, what food you eat, and carbs and proteins and fats and whatever, and that no one wants to do that. No one ever wants to do that. I don't want to do it. I was doing keto for a while, and it was like, I'm like, what? How, what? Like, how do you measure all this stuff? I finally figured it out. And once I figured it out, it was easy to measure everything. But when I'm talking to like a business professional, and I'm like, okay, you wouldn't do your P&L without, you run your business off your profit and loss statement, right? And they're like, yeah. So it's the same thing for fitness and nutrition and getting the number on the scale, or the look in the mirror that you're looking for. It's that P&L. Like, if you're not measuring what you're putting into your business and what you're taking out of your business, your business is going to fail. The same thing for your fitness. If you're not measuring what you're putting in your body and what you're putting out of your body through work, your fitness is going to fail. And that's when the light bulb generally clicks on, because they're like focusing on those numbers. And I'm like, it's the same thing for fitness or nutrition or whatever. If you don't measure it, you can't fix it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's really interesting too, because, like, when you think about it, like, when I work with clients, I think a lot of us everyone tends to think that, like, you don't got to measure anything. Like, there's been this blind thing in social media, like, tracking your intake is like the worst thing to do in the world. And if you don't do all those things, like, it becomes like, I think people think that there's this magic solution and that it's not going to be any work. And I don't know, maybe if you've probably heard that from, like, maybe your clients or you've seen on the internet, but it's like, just being able to teach them, like, yeah, you're gonna have to do some work, but the work's gonna be worth it. And other than for you, just telling them how it is, like, hey, listen, man, like, if you do the work, it's gonna be worth it. Have you ever had to navigate through with a client, like, convincing them that they got to do the work and trying to instruct them that it's gonna be worth it? Or do you just simply say that, like, hey, do the work, it's gonna be worth it?
You know, I have had clients that I start getting them going down a road, and they start doing the work and they see the results, and then they think, oh, shiny object. Maybe I need to work on something else over here. And bro, come back into focus. Look, it's easy to get distracted. I'm super ADD my own self. And there's a certain amount of discipline that it takes to stay on track. Like, no one's going to be motivated to do, and it doesn't matter what it is, leadership, business, fitness, anything, mindset. You just have to do the thing that you're supposed to do. And I'm human. I fall off track a lot, fitness or whatever. Right now I'm training to do this rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon, and I fell down and I like have this huge scar down my chest right now because I was running and I tripped, and yeah, it was ugly. Right before I actually saw you out in California, and I haven't done very much running since then. So now I have to get back on it. I'm behind now on my training progress. So I have to get back on it and do extra work just to catch back up. The same thing in business, the same thing in leadership. We'll just talk about this in leadership, for example. If you have an employee who is maybe a little bit toxic for your organization, maybe they're a little bit higher maintenance, maybe they're not producing the things that they are supposed to be producing. Those people, if you don't take action and correct that situation immediately, it's going to get worse. And it's like this thing where pain is cumulative. If I were to like tap you in the arm over and over, you're going to be like, no big deal. It's not a big, it's you're just tapping me in the arm. Maybe it's a little annoying, but after I do that for about an hour, it's going to start to get sore. If I keep doing that for a week, 8 hours a day, you're going to have a giant bruise on your arm. And pretty soon, like if a cool spring breeze blows by your shirt and it hits your arm just the right way, you're going to like be on your knees in pain. And the same thing is true for anything else that's negative in your life. If you don't take care of that, it's just going to be cumulative. It's going to have this cumulative negative effect that's going to negatively impact you. But the same thing is true for when you're doing positive things in your life. If you continue to do positive things, you write down, I like to write down 5 things that I'm grateful for every day. And one of those things is always something that is has been a negative thing in my life. Maybe it's a terrible relationship that I've been a part of, or it's some sort of struggle that I've gone through. If I reframe how I think about that thing that has challenged me in my life, and I make that a positive thing, like I'm grateful for that challenge that I had. I'm grateful for that suffering that I had because I'm a better person because of it. Like I turn bad stuff into good stuff in my life. And so the more that you like have gratitude, the more that you have appreciation for things, the more that you bring goodness into your life and you achieve those little mini goals that you set for yourself every single day, the better your life is going to be.
Yeah, no, that I think that's so powerful because I think, and you probably see this just as much as I see it too, is I think in society we have got into this like victim mentality, like it's all my fault. Like, and I hate it because it's just like at the end of the day, it's like, dude, like you went through that thing and that's okay that you went through that thing, but use that thing to grow. Like, I can, we could probably talk about our, fitness failures or business failures and how did we turn that into massive growth? I don't know about you, but I think when we look at failure, I think, our mindset is so skewed into, oh, well, I failed, I can't do it. It's like, no, that failure, you're one step away from success. I don't know about you, but like any of the failures that I've had in business or fitness, it's like, if I, anytime I've quit, it's like you're one step away. Like it's like 4th and goal. Like you got 1 yard to freaking go. Just run it up the gut, From a mindset perspective, what has something that has really helped you instill that into your clients or even yourself of like, yes, I failed, but you know what? I'm not going to let this failure turn into, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe weeks or years into, I'm not going to do anything because I failed. Like, what's like one thing you've done to turn?
So I try to kind of like what I talked about earlier. I like to say, so that again, so I have this get naked mindset when it's, and I call it 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. So if you go to 5sealsecrets.com, the number 5sealsecrets.com, I'll send you like an email, a PDF of what it's like to think like a Navy SEAL. And again, the N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure. And so failure has been the biggest teacher in my life. Failure has, I look at failure as, it's, if you see these memes on social media where it's like the ladders that go up over the wall, or how to what success looks like, and it's like dips and falls and things like that. Or it's like this, like you have this giant wall in front of you. Every time I have failure, I just look at that as a rung in the ladder to help me get over this wall. And that's kind of the idea that I try to impart on, the people that I work with is, or from stage or whatever, like accept that failure that you have. When you learn to accept the failure and you don't like get down on yourself, you look like you use that failure as a foundation for the success that you will eventually have. Because I don't know about you, but if I do something awesome all the time, and I was just on another call where the guy was talking about, I don't like, he said almost verbatim the message that I generally portray is like when I have failure, I learn so much more. When I have failure, I learn, we'll just use Thomas Edison. He learned more than 10,000 ways to not create the incandescent light bulb. Michael Jordan, probably the best basketball player of all time, MVP for sure. Every time he missed a shot, he didn't go out and party, even though they won. They didn't go party with the team. He went back to the gym that night and practiced that shot in every possible scenario that he could think of to actually never miss that shot again. And worked with Tim Grover and all that other stuff. And like these are all the things that I failed during that game, even though we won. We're going to fix all of those so that we can be better the next game. And so when you go through life, failing, accepting those failures and finding out ways to never do that thing again, never fail like that again. Like you can fail another way, that's fine. But if you can never fail like that again, because you learned like, oh, that doesn't work, that's how not to do it. And then you take and you apply those lessons you learned, you're going to fail another way, that's fine. And eventually you're not going to fail anymore. And you're just going to keep being more successful along the way.
Absolutely. It just kind of comes at the whole concept of failure's feedback. That's really all,
yeah. Yes.
At the end of the day. I'll ask you one last question. So, we've talked about, the hard times and all that kind of stuff, but what do you do, to keep, mentally sustain yourself when you're going through like a good time in life? Because I think for a lot of us, we reach like it's peaks and valleys, right? You have a lot of time that like your success, everyone's like, hey, congratulations. Then you go through a time where it's not so good. You question what you're doing, you go through that roller coaster. But what do you do in the good time to never ever feel like, you're on cruise control, you're coasting in life? Because I feel like, I know I've talked to some people, like that's the worst time in life is when they have everything, because they lose their sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, that is the question of the hour. Is we received some sort of success in our life and we're like, oh, life is good. And I'm no different than anyone else. I have achieved success. And then I just sat back and I was like, I am awesome. From like being a leader in the SEAL teams to, entrepreneur life or whatever. And as soon as that thought hits my mind, failure, boom, right behind it. Like I get reminded very, very quickly. That complacency that we end up having is oftentimes, especially in my former career, is life and death. And we've been out and we've been very successful doing operations overseas, and we got a little cocky, and then we got a little complacent, and then bad stuff happened to us. And so I'm very conscious of that now. So anytime I like to say create small victories, really to help get you where you need to go. Like if you have overwhelm in your life, create these small victories to get you where you need to go, to create get the more wins that you have, the more inertia you start building up and you start moving forward, and it's harder to stop you after you have all of these wins. But if you stop and you're like, all right, look how great I am, it takes so much more effort to get that ball rolling again. So I might stop and celebrate for a second, like I did a good job. What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next big accomplishment I need to make? And that becomes my focus and my goal. If I think about that thing I did yesterday, then I'm going to drive off the road. It's like driving in your car. You have this windshield that's gigantic that you need to see all the stuff and all the danger in front of you and where you're going and things like that. And your rear view mirror is very small. So it's great to like look at that and like, oh, that's really cool. I saw that thing that I did in the rearview mirror, but I got to focus on the thing that's in front of me. I got to focus on the danger, the pitfalls, the bridges, the construction, traffic that's in front of me. I need to focus on the things that are in front of me that I need to navigate, not the things that are behind me. That was great that I can see them, but I really need to focus on what's in front of me. And as long as I can keep that in the front of my mind, focus on the windshield, not the rearview mirror, then I don't fall off and I don't become complacent.
Very, very powerful. Yeah, no, I love that analogy because it's so true. We can all get in our car right now and we can look at that and know that that's so true. Kind of as we wrap up here, is there anything else that you can think of? Because I feel like you've just dropped value bombs after value bombs inside of this podcast. First of all, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on here and talk to us about mindset and just everything that you've shared. Is there anything else you'd love to leave us with?
Let's see. When I got lots of stuff to share always. Sometimes it takes me a minute to like get my motor running, but I spent some time teaching sniper school, and one of the things I noticed when I was teaching sniper school, and then I went back to the SEAL teams, and we would get new guns, and leadership would they might go from a platoon to like a headquarters position and come back from a platoon and they forgot how to sight in their gun or something like this. And what I always noticed when guys were sighting in their weapon is they would always make these small adjustments to their optic, to their sights, and they would never really get their impacts to move across that paper like they needed to get their gun sighted in so we can actually get to work. And so if I was running the range and I would see that happen, I would walk over and I would ask them if I could, help them make some adjustments. And I would make these bold adjustments to their optic. Like they were like looking at me with like bewilderment, like, what are you doing? That you're just probably broke my gun. And so I'm like, just do me a favor and just like take a few shots, give me a 3-round group and see where your impacts are. And when you make these bold adjustments to their optics, you see their rounds move from like one side of the paper to the other side of the paper, but they're actually much closer to the bullseye than they were when they were making these tiny little adjustments. So the life lesson from that thing is, if you're stuck in life and you're continuing to like make these iterative changes and nothing is really happening, do something bold, something very different, something that takes you completely out of your comfort zone, and make these bold adjustments. See where your impacts actually land after making these bold adjustments, and then make the iterative changes to get you on target where you need to go. So if you're stuck in life, make bold adjustments and get naked.
Hey, there we go. Love that. That's a great way to end it. But no, William, it's been a pleasure having you come on the podcast and just really being able to drop so many value bombs. But where, if any of our listeners like this just really speaks with them, resonate with them, where can they find you and where can they connect with you?
Let's see. I mentioned earlier, if you want to, get your 5 SEAL secrets, go to 5sealsecrets.com, learn about the Get Naked mindset. Just put your name and email in there, and I send you a link to a PDF to download. It's 100% free. I'm on Instagram, william.r.branum. I'm on Facebook, William Branum something. LinkedIn. I'm on all the socials. Not really on Twitter. I should probably get on there now that we got Elon in charge. But that's just one more thing to do. But maybe I'll make that my small victory, is set up my Twitter account and actually post something on there and start moving forward. But anyway, yeah, I'm mostly active on Instagram, and then I'm active on all the others, hit or miss.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys are listening and you didn't catch that, don't worry. Hey, I'm going to have him send me all of his information. I'm going to drop it in the show notes so you guys can get connected with him, guys. Like if you haven't checked out his stuff, and you just need a really good kick in the ass from a mindset perspective, check his stuff out. It's awesome. I couldn't recommend it enough. And with that being said, all the listeners that I have, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you. And I hope you enjoy this episode, and everyone take care.